Hello, I'm Mike Wilson and welcome to Comcast Newsmakers from the Indiana State House. Officials and lawmakers from across the state are joining us during this year's legislative session, and we're discussing a pretty wide range of important issues. And Senator Tim Lanane joins us right now. You're the minority leader in the Senate. And I wanted to ask you about, this probably impacts your caucus more than maybe any other caucus, certainly.
Yes.
But being a senator in Indiana, and being in the Democratic minority right now, redistricting has got to be a big issue for you guys as you try to gain some headway and chip back at the, what seems like an insurmountable difference between you and the number of Republicans right now.
Well, it is, and it's not only a big issue for our caucus, it's a big issue for the democratic processes, really, because what we've seen over the years, and this is a game that's been played by both the Republicans and Democrats, whoever was in the majority and had control of the maps when it came time to do our redistricting, have always drawn them in a way which would be to their political favor. And so I'm not here to condemn one party or the other because, as I say, there's been equal abuse of this system. But what it has resulted in has been maps which have been so skewed that you now have a situation where you have super majorities in both chambers. And certainly in the Senate, where the numbers are 41-9, it's hard to believe that really it's the political makeup of the state of Indiana is that skewed. And in fact, when you look at recent elections, if you look at a baseline of the state breakdown of Democratic and Republican voters, it doesn't reflect that number. So, and what it has resulted in too are these districts where you have such an overwhelming number of either Republicans or Democrats that you don't really have, a choice come the fall. It's you might have a contested primary, but you don't really have a competitive race in the fall. We had a number of legislative districts in 2016 and 2014 where there simply was no opponent in the fall for you to choose from, and people have a right to choose.
Did you go back and look at and I'm sure you did, this is kind of a ridiculous question, but when you look at the presidential primary for the Republicans, the Democrats, interesting breakout, I thought, when you saw the Republicans and the Democrats show up, and that's a statewide number, that's not per district, but did that teach you anything about what the overall temperature of the state was?
Well, it did. I mean, obviously, Donald Trump won, and he won overwhelmingly, but still yet, Hillary Clinton got over 40% of the vote, and but when you look at the breakup in the Indiana General Assembly, where the Democrats in the House only have 31% of the seats, and in the Senate, it's not even 20%. You got to figure something's going on with how those maps are drawn. Now we're going to find out probably in the courts before we find out in the legislative bodies as to how that plays out, because I think you're going to see, depending on the ruling from the Supreme Court to come out sometime probably in the next several months, what we will have to do here in the state of Indiana. It could be, in my opinion, very likely that the courts will strike down maps like those drawn in Indiana, even though we don't have a judicial challenge to the maps on the books right now, you might say. I think it's going to result in forcing there to be some legislative redistricting reforms in our state.
So in a minute or less, the other side of this, the other solution for your party is to make more Democrats. How do you do that?
That's true, and that's a fair point, because that's always a matter of having a clear message. In my opinion, it is to look at new voters coming into the system and younger voters, and I think we do have opportunities there. Now you have to convince those young voters of the importance of voting every election. And I think if we can do that, we have an opportunity to expand our base, and I think hopefully you're going to see that happen in days to come. And coupled with perhaps redistricting reform, you're going to see a more competitive political scenario in Indiana.
All right, Tim Lanane, thank you so much. And for more great conversations with our local leaders, please visit ComcastNewsmakers.com.